I'd like to talk about cutting all of your pieces out. So the first thing that I did when I started my pattern is obviously read through the directions. The next thing I did was I went through and cut out all of my pieces, and you can see here that I marked with a marking pen what each one of my pieces are, so that as I go through the directions, I can easily grab which pieces I need to complete that set. All right, so first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna start with, I personally like to start with prepping some of my pieces. So I'm gonna attach the foam piece to the base, and then I'm gonna do my handles. That way they're done, and when we're ready to attach them to the bag, they're already ready to go. So the first thing that I did was we marked the center of our straps just with a silver marking pen. So just mark that, and then we're gonna measure a 4-inch piece. So take your ruler, match it up in the center of the 2-inch mark, and then draw a line or mark however you need to that 4-inch section on both sides. It doesn't take much, just a little bit so that you know where that piece goes. Okay, and then we are going to fold this piece over in half and mark it at the start and stop. Now I'm going to put just a little tiny mark on the outside just so that I can see where that is with the silver marking pen, so that I know where that piece is going to go, where I'm going to start and stop that stitch. Right there and right there. Just a little tiny mark on both pieces. Okay, so now that's ready to sew. We're going to do this one. So these are both of your handles. The measurements for the handles are in the pattern. Okay, so now those are prepped. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to sew this from those right in between those markings, just sew those two pieces in half together. Then I'm going to go through with the base. I attached my foam piece to the exterior base, and I personally drew lines about 3/4 of an inch apart from each other to secure that piece. And all I used to put them together was double-sided sticky tape, just to hold it in place while I sew. Okay, here we go. All right, now that that is done, look at how pretty that is. That's done. We're going to set him aside, and our handles are ready for attaching. I also went through and heat sealed the ends because nylon webbing is notorious for falling apart. It's stupid. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and set those aside, and the next step in the pattern is to grab our exterior slip pocket. So I've got my trolley sleeve there. We're going to set that aside, and we're going to grab our exterior slip pockets, our exterior and our lining for the slip pocket. We're going to place them right sides together, clip and sew all the way around, but we're going to leave a hole at the top so that we can flip it. Once we've got that done, we'll cut our corners and then flip it inside out, poke everything out nice and sturdy, and then close that hole at the top. Let's get started. Okay, now we're going to cut our corners. Make sure that you don't cut past your stitching on each corner. Otherwise, you'll poke a hole when you turn it inside out. And then use that hole at the top to turn the whole thing. I like to go into the farthest corner first, grab it, and push it through, and then follow with the rest. Next, we're going to go through and top stitch just the top of the pocket. And that'll close that hole there. Now, since this is an exterior pocket that I feel like I'm going to use a lot, I went ahead and gave it a double row of stitching at the top just to give it that really good strength in the top of the pocket. Then we're going to go ahead and mark our center of the pocket and draw a line with a removable pen. Now, to hold it in place, I'm going to go ahead and put some double-sided tape on each short end. And that's just to help keep it from shifting while I attach it to the main body. And we're going to attach it to the front of our bag. And you want to center that also, and we're going to go center it. It's about right there. Okay, now we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of our pocket, down, around, up that middle line and back down, and then up to the other side. Then for extra stability in our pocket, we're going to add a second row of stitching at the very bottom. Now that our pocket is attached all the way around, she's so pretty, we're going to set her aside and start on our trolley sleeve. Okay, trolley sleeve front and back. We're going to sew each long end together, right sides together at 1/4 inch. Then we're going to turn and top stitch both. Now that our trolley sleeve is prepped, the pattern has you go through, find the center of this piece and measure 5 inches to each side and draw a line. Now what that does is that creates a 10-inch trolley sleeve. So that's what your handle goes through on your bag. For me, maths, okay? I'm gonna measure 2 inches in from each side and draw my line. You do whatever works for you best to get the same job done. So I'm going to measure 2 inches in. And draw a line here. Whoop, there we go. All right, so those are going to be the stitch lines that we're going to use to attach our trolley piece to the back of our bag. So we're going to flip it around, make sure that they're both facing the correct way, and we're going to again center our bag from top to bottom. Perfect. And then we're going to stitch the sides together and also stitch those straight lines, those placement marks. That will finish our back piece. Now that our front and back panels are both done, we're going to start constructing. First, we're going to take our side panels, one on each side, right sides together, line it up, and sew that from top to bottom at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then we can open up our front piece, just like that, and add the front to the other end. Now that our front and back pieces are connected to our sides, we're going to attach the base. Now it's super important to make sure that your pockets, and if you're using directional fabric, are facing the right direction for your pockets when you attach your base to the bottom of the bag. So here's the bottom of my bag. See my directional fabric? I'm going to start with attaching my base right sides together, lining up our corners all the way down to the sides. See how the edges of my fabric here line up? You can also mark your centers and line it up that way as well. And I'm going to do the same to the other side. Okay, now to sew this, we're actually going to start on the short sides here. We're going to sew this short side together and make sure that you stop at that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you're only going to sew in between your seam allowances. So the short sides first, and then you'll go back and do the long sides. All right, it's super important to make sure that you've caught all of your seams. I've missed mine just a little bit right there, so I'm going to go back and fix that. Then you're going to cut your corners. Make sure that you don't cut through any of your stitching on any of your corners, because otherwise you'll end up with a hole. So I'm going to fix that real quick, and then we're going to turn her inside out. Lastly, we get to attach our handles. So we're going to find the center front and the center back, and then we're going to measure 2 inches in from each side. So I'm just going to mark a little notch there because that'll help when we go to attach our linings too. So there's my little notch, center front. Center back. Now, 2 inches from that is going to be the inside of our first handle. 2 inches. Also. Now we want about a 1/2 inch overhang on our handle pieces. So there's, there's my 2 inch right there. Line that up and clip it in place. 2 inches there, 1/2 inch overhang, and clip it in place. Now we're going to baste that within the seam allowance here, and then repeat to the other side. Now my exterior is complete. I'm going to set her aside and we're going to start on the interior. All right, getting started on the back, we're going to start with our lining slip pocket. I'm going to do this a little differently than the directions, only because I'm using pretty thick fabrics. I have a bonded poly nylon from Wonderground Fabrics, phenomenal to work with. And I have a PVC backed waterproof canvas. So these are already thick. So I'm going to only sew the top part of the lining slip pocket, whereas the pattern has you sew the top and the bottom, turn them inside out and line them up. Well, that leaves me with a very thick bottom seam, and I'm trying to keep the bulk down inside. So I'm gonna leave this seam unsewn for now and let it get sewn into the final seams when I attach the base. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take the top. Again, I have a directional print, so I'm going to make sure that I am sewing the top, line it up, pin it, sew it, turn it out, and top stitch. Again, with the slip pocket, we're gonna give that top row a double stitch for stability, and then we're gonna attach to one of our interior back pieces, just like this. We're gonna slide him right there on top and stitch all the way around, and we're gonna again find the center to create 2 slip pockets. Now that our slip pocket is attached and anchored on all sides, we're going to set that one aside and we're going to start on our last interior pocket, and that's going to be our zipper pocket. So I'm going to set the sides apart, I'm going to set the base apart. We're going to use our last front back piece, and I've got 2 zipper pocket linings here. Now you're going to make your box on your zipper lining piece per the directions. I use the wider zipper tape, so I like a larger box than what the directions call for with a pre-made zipper. So you're going to make your marks, make your box according to whatever you are going to use. Again, if you're going to use a custom zipper by the yard tape, it's typically wider than your pre-made zippers. So I use a wider box. So I drew my box, I believe I did 3/4 of an inch. Yeah, I did 3/4 of an inch because this zipper tape is 1 1/4 inches long. So that will give me plenty of space on either side to catch my zipper teeth in here. Now we're gonna place our zipper. We're gonna first make sure that we are centered here, and we're gonna go 2.5 inches down from the top. So make sure that he is even all the way around. And then with your right sides together, make sure that your box is sewn on the wrong side of your lining pieces. Right sides together, you're gonna sew that box in place. There's a couple of different ways to do this to keep it straight while you sew. I like to fold my edges over and clip it on one side to get that first line sewn in straight. So you can do that on both sides. And then with these zipper boxes, you never want to start in a corner just because coming around those edges is really hard to match up in a corner. So we're going to start here in the center, sew down, around, and back this way, around until we end. Then we'll cut it open and flip it inside out. Okay, so what I've been doing is I've been using my bone creaser, again because I'm using a fairly thick waterproof canvas. I'm using my bone creaser to crease open these seams before I turn this piece inside out, and that just makes it easier to have those nice crisp seams once it's all flipped. So from here we're going to go through, we're going to take this zipper panel piece and we're going to stuff it through the hole that we've cut open here. And then we'll flatten out our seams to put to get ready for our zipper. So see how much nicer those seams are once they're all pre-creased. Okay, let's flip it. All right, now that that's all flipped inside out, you see how my corners are really nice, crisp, clean, not bunched up at all. When you cut into those V notches from the other side, it's super important to get as close as you can to the stitching without cutting it. That's how you get those nice clean corners. Now the next step, see, ta-da, there's the inside and the outside. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to put double-sided tape on the right side, the pretty side of our zipper lining here, so that we can stick it here. I'm going to go ahead and put my zipper pull on from here, just because for me it's easier to put it on before I attach it and sew it, because then I can move it in and out of the way without having to worry about trying to finagle it once I've got it actually on. So zipper pull first. Peel it like a candy bar, put one side in, and there are lots and lots of tools to help you do this if you have a hard time doing it by yourself. So we've got the zipper pull in. You're going to put the first side in to the separator, not past it. Stick the other side in, and then use the teeth to push it through together. Just like that. Okay, now I like my bags to close from right to left, so I'm going to put it on making sure that it's going that way. And next, double-sided tape. Now we're going to peel our tape and attach it to the underside and then sew that around the box. All right, our zipper is on. You can see her very pretty. She opens and closes. It's nice and flat. Now we're gonna turn it over, and you can cut any excess zipper off. So I've got some excess here. Where's my scissors? Cut off some excess. You don't want to cut too close to your stitching because you don't want to accidentally open up your zipper, especially when we turn this inside out through this pocket. So we want to have enough there and enough here. And if you noticed while I was stitching my box on, I did go ahead and backstitch over those zipper teeth, so they should not pull out for any reason while we're turning inside out or using our pocket, etc. So now we're going to take our zipper lining leftover piece. We're going to line this up and we're going to sew around these pieces, just the zipper panel pieces, not through the back piece. We're going to go all the way around, but we're going to leave a nice big opening here at the bottom. So you only want to sew about 1 inch in on each side, because we are going to turn the entire bag inside out through this opening. Now that our zipper pocket is on, you don't have to cut the corners here, but it is a good idea to cut the corners on the bottom, because this piece will be flipped up and stitched once we've turned everything inside out. Now that our zipper pocket and our slip pocket is complete, we are going to attach our side panels the same way that we did for the outside. So we're going to attach right sides together, one to each side, and then open it up and attach the front panel. Now that you've got all the sides, front and back and base sewn, you can go ahead and trim all of your seams in your lining just like I did. And that means that the lining itself is done. We just have one more piece before we start putting all of it together. We're going to start with our zipper panels. Now, the pattern has you fold your ends in, wrong sides together 1/2 inch. To make this easier across all 4 pieces, that's 8 sides, I drew a line 1 inch in on each end, added double-sided tape to the raw edge, and I'm just gonna peel that tape and fold it in, and that will make my panels much easier to work with moving forward. All right, now that we've got our zipper panels prepped, you want to decide, especially if you're working with a directional print, which 2 you want on your top side. So I'm gonna go with these 2 that I want on the top because I really like those images. Now, also working with a directional print, you want to make sure that your panels are facing the correct direction when you attach them to the zipper. So I want my panels facing out like this when they're done. So I'm going to start with the 0 side here, fold it right sides together and clip it in place. And then we're going to take one of the under sides and sandwich our piece, our zipper, in between the pieces. Just like that. Make sure that they are lined up end to end, just like that. And I'm going to clip them in place so that they make sure and stay put where they're at, because that bonded poly nylon is kind of slippery, just a little bit. Make sure that your folded ends match up on each side, on each end, and you're gonna sew that in place. All right, once that's all clipped, sew it in place, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we're gonna flip it out and top stitch. Now that that side is on and top stitched, we have to repeat to the other side. So I'm going to take the one that I want on top, flip it around so that it faces the zipper in the way that I want it to. Make sure that your panels are both lined up. Flip right sides together. And we want our panels to be even from side to side because that's where they're going to stay. And then clip it in place. Sandwich the lining around the zipper and repeat. Stitch it 1/4 inch, flip it out and top stitch. Now that our zipper panels are on the zipper and we're top stitched and turned, this part is a little tricky. So what we need to do is we need to sew this side to this side, but right sides together. So we're gonna fold this guy in just like this. I can clip him together on each end just to kind of hold him in place. And then we are going to fold this end around this side to the other side and put those ends together, sew it, and then turn it inside out. Be very careful as you're stitching not to catch these inside pieces. So stuff him in there as far away from the seam as you can, and you're going to sew this piece together kind of like a worm. Take your time on this part. Make sure you don't catch your stitching. Make sure everything stays nice and straight, even, and lined up. Okay, now we're going to repeat to the other side. We're going to roll this guy up, open him up, and fold it right sides together. Line up our edges. And again, sew. Now that we're all turned inside out and flat, we're going to finish our top stitching from the center where our zipper is and down each side to the corner on all four sides. Then we can attach to our lining and start to finish up our bag. Now that the zipper panel is complete, we are going to take our lining, and on the right side of our lining, on the inside of our lining, we're going to make a mark 2 inches down. This is going to be the placement line for our zipper panel. So I'm just going to make a couple of hash marks straight across so that I can line up my zipper panel piece and sew it together. All right, now with the right side up, well, first actually, I'm going to mark my centers just so that I know where they are. Center marked, just so that I can see it there. So that as I'm lining this up on each side, it's going to stay centered from the front to the back. All right, on the wrong side, I am going to place just a short line of double-sided tape to stick it to the right side of the lining, just to kind of help keep it straight, because I'm using waterproof canvas and the bonded polynylon, and I do not want to poke holes. So I'm going to put some double-sided tape just on the edge, just a little bit, not a crazy amount, not end to end, just enough to keep it in place. And you see I'm not exactly putting it on the edge. That way, once I sew it at that 1/8 inch, I can remove the double-sided tape. So kind of like a pin, but not really. All right, so this way, I'm going to start with this side. I'm going to peel this tape, line it up with that line, and then sew it end to end. Now that we've got one side on, we're going to take the tape off and apply it to our second side. All right, now that that's top stitched on, we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna go ahead and put my zipper pulls on at this point. So just because I think it'll be easier to do so that we can turn the whole bag inside out. So one zipper pull from each end, and then I'm gonna use just a little bit of, I don't have zipper ends, the hardware for that. So I'm going to use a little bit of my waterproof canvas to just close off those zipper ends. I'm going to use these waterproof canvas just to enclose the ends of my zippers, just like that. All right, now that my zipper ends are on, we're going to open up our zippers. See, look, they have stops now. Open up our zippers, and we're going to place the exterior right sides together inside of our lining, line up our raw edges, and sew all the way around. Now remember, we're going to be turning the bag inside out through our zipper pocket here, so make sure that your zipper pocket inside is open, because it's easier to do that while you have access to it. See, look, there's our little hole over there. Let's do it. Now that we are all sewn together, again, you want to make sure that you're alternating your seams here. That way when you turn this inside out, it's not super, super bulky when we go to do our top stitch. So here we're going to take everything, make sure that you caught both pieces on the inside and the outside all the way around to prevent any holes. And then you're going to take everything through this itty bitty hole and turn it all inside out. Now that we've got the bag all turned inside out, I have the inside of my zipper pocket lining. We're going to sew this closed to close that hole, and then we're going to top stitch all the way around. Now that we're top stitched, our pocket hole is closed. All we gotta do is stuff the lining back inside of our inner pocket. This is my favorite part of making the bag because now we close our pocket and we, my friends, are done.